Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to video 2 on our series of the principles of marketing. Now, in the last video, we kind of established the basic concept of marketing, and we figured out that marketing is more than just selling and advertising, all right? And it is used effectively, or if used by if it is used effectively by businesses, it can help influence decision making when it comes to purchasing something. We also looked at what the difference between needs and wants and demands are. And now we're going to look at what it takes to manage a market. All right. And we're going to spend some time here. So let's get started. So in managing a market, what the purpose of marketing is to promote exchange or trade, right? Pretty simple, right? And what do businesses want to trade or exchange? Well, think about what trade and exchange means, right? Think all the way back to the early days of man, right? And in the early days of man, what was basically done was if somebody had something of value and somebody else had something of value, right? They might say, okay, let's go ahead and make this trade and make it happen, okay? And of course, that has been modernized today because we use trade in the exchange of or in the form of money or currency, okay? And of course, currency has value backed behind it, right? So with that in mind, all right, most of the time when people purchase or do business with somebody, they're trying to, one, separate themselves from one of these, okay, or something equivocal, right? Now, they could also trade something. Hey, if you do this, I'll trade out work for this, or I'll trade something for this. And that is still done by many businesses, right? So let's look at what exchange is and trade is, and then apply that to marketing, all right? It is the act of obtaining a desired object or a result from someone by offering something in return, right? You do something for me, and I'll do something for you. Pretty simple, right? In the case of when we go buy groceries, right? Okay, I am choosing this stuff off the shelf. Thank you for providing it for me. In exchange, I'm going to give you money for it, right? There you go. It is usually a willful act, okay? Willful act, all right? People are not forcing you to make an exchange, okay, to an offer, at least if we're doing ethically, right? And then speaking of ethics, if someone is going to promote, in a business is going to promote exchange or trade, ethics are key, okay? Ethics are key. And this is especially if building relationships are needed for a business to grow, okay? Let's see. Let's take a look at what that word ethics means, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a quick Google here to find ethics. There it is. And using our tools that we learned about in our last unit on internet searches, right? We learned and defined that if you put the word define, then the word you want to use, okay, you can find it pretty easily, okay? So we put define ethics. And in this case, we have from dictionary.com, moral principles that govern a person's behavior or conducting of an activity, all right? You see some other words here like morals or morality, right? Over here, we find from Wikipedia, ethics or moral philosophy is a branch of philosophy that involves systematizing, that's an interesting word, defending and recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior. Further, let's take a look at this little wordle dealy right here, right? See if we can get it to pull up, all right? And so here it comes. Sorry, I didn't do that before, so it's still thinking. There we go. All right, so you see around here, right, words that branch off of ethics include things like integrity, doing the right thing, right, morality, positive principles, right, honesty, doing what is right, fair, responsibility, conscience, right, conscience might be making in those choices, making a choice, honor, and of course, value, okay? And so let's get back to the PowerPoint itself. All right, so yeah, this is key if building relationships are needed for the business to grow. Now, let's take that a step further. Have you ever heard the phrase, oh, they're only in business because of the money? Well, some businesses are, okay? And it's evident by the way they choose businesses, right? Or they do business, right? Going back to my mug thing, right? If I was a business that made mugs, right, and it held, its contents correctly, but if I designed it and I knew about the design flaw where every time I picked it up, the handle broke, okay, and I didn't do what it would take to fix it, and I still sold these defective items, that would make people question my integrity, right? Or if I was a car salesperson and I always lied and never told the truth and I tried to swindle my way out of things, that reputation would get around, right? So ethics are definitely key, especially if building relationships are important for the business to grow. And we'll look at building companies that build relationships really well here shortly, right? So a market then is a set of potential buyers for a product or service. Potential buyers. Not everyone is a buyer, okay? Not everyone enjoys going to McDonald's, okay? For some people, they think of McDonald's and they go, ooh, McGross, okay? Or they go like Mr. C, oh, McDonald's, I'm going to get the McWhatevers. Yeah, it's not very good, right? But there are some people who find value of it because they want to be fed quickly, easily, and what they perceive as cheaply, okay? So just because I live near McDonald's doesn't mean I'm in the market for McDonald's. Does it make sense? Okay. Additionally, right, eventually some of y'all will be in the market for a vehicle. All right. You're a few years away from getting your first vehicle. Does that mean that you're in the market right now for a vehicle? Maybe not. Okay. So if somebody's in the market, creating relationships requires a lot of work and effort. And we'll look at companies that do a good job at creating relationships, and we'll see what we mean here, all right? Now, am I talking about the kissy-kissy, smoochy-smoochy kind of relationship? No, okay. I'm talking about the long-term relationship. I'll give you an example, all right? I bought a car and I decided to finance the car, okay? And I'm paying the bank for that, right? That bank and I have a working relationship. Now, if it turns out that the bank decided to constantly go back on their word and kept on exchanging their terms, right? I would want to sever that relationship and go with somebody else to finance the vehicle. But I find the bank I'm using is honest and upright and forthright. Additionally, if I would have purchased a vehicle from someone who I knew was or looking for a vehicle, and I knew there was somebody who was not the most ethical of individuals when it came to buying and selling, I probably wouldn't do business with them, right? So I wouldn't have that business relationship, okay? Then you've got to go into marketing management, right? It is the art and science, an art and science. Think about what that means, right? Art requires a certain amount of creativity, right? Doing something that catches people's eye, right? But it's also a science because there's plenty of psychology that goes behind marketing, right? And it's the art and science of selecting target markets and building relationships with them, okay? Target markets. Just because you exist in the market doesn't make you a target market, all right? I'll give you an example, okay? Let's do eeny, meeny, miny, Beyonce. Okay, so Beyonce is a wonderful singer, an incredible vocalist, and has been around for quite a few years. Started off her career in singing for various spiritual organizations and what have you. Eventually created and started the group, or was in part of the group called Destiny's Child, and then she went off and had a solo career and was very, very successful in that. All right. Now I find that a lot of Beyonce's music doesn't really appeal to me as the average listener. Why is that? Well, because Beyonce doesn't usually create music for male individuals of my personality type, okay? More specifically, not people of my age who prefer rock, blues, and some older hip hop and a specified genre, right? However, Beyonce does appeal to women a majority of the time, right? Or people who prefer that style of music and what have you, right? So there's a particular market for Beyonce, as much as there's a particular market for Taylor Swift, okay? You may like or hate Taylor Swift. It doesn't bother me at all, right? But the idea is that she appeals to a certain market, okay? Of a certain age group, okay? Or a certain set of individuals, okay? Which makes sense, right? So there you go. Or better yet, okay? Mercedes-Benz, okay? Not everybody is, Mercedes-Benz, although they speak class and luxury, aren't marketed towards everybody because there are people who make plenty of money to afford a Mercedes-Benz, but they're like, nah, I don't want one, right? Not interested, okay? So they don't market everybody. So there's the target markets, those who are specifically marketed to in the product or brand, all right? Now, this managing a market may include finding, molding, keeping, and growing your target customers by consistently delivering exceptional value. This includes doing things like market research. We'll do an activity on that, all right? It's basically knowing what the market says about you, right? Or says about the product, or knowing what's going on in the market. Designing offers and prices, that's important, right? Maybe it includes promoting and furnishing the means to promote. So make sure the information is available and distributed, and storing and supplying of goods and items. Are they going to be stored in a warehouse? Are they going to be stored on a shelf? Where are they going to be placed? That kind of thing, right? Maybe it includes product design and redesign, or understanding environmental forces, right? Maybe that's social or demographic or economic or technical, or maybe even political or legal, all right? Let me give you an example of this. Kitty cereal, okay? Kitty cereal, all right. Now, is everybody in the market for Trix? I don't think everybody is, right? Because you go to the kitty cereal section, or you go to the cereal section, and you see something going on, right? Usually, all right, that Trix cereal is not at the eye level with adults, right? Where is the eye level at with the Trix cereal? For shorter individuals of an adolescent stature. In other words, kids, right? So they're looking right at these cereals with these cartoon characters on it, right? And they see these eyes and their smiles, and they're like, ooh, eat me, Trix are for kids. Right? Silly rabbit, Trix are for kids, right? So they are appealing towards a child market, okay? Now, on the other hand, okay, adults might not be concerned with fruity, sugary cereals, okay? They might say, well, I want cereal, but I'm not really into that, and I need to be concerned with health. So they might choose unsweet Cheerios, not even Honey Nut Cheerios, but just Cheerios, or wheat fiber bars, or fiber O's, or what have you, right? So they're a different group of individuals. And to know that and understand that, you got to realize that, hey, kids like sugary stuff with cartoon characters on it. That's knowing the market, where adults might prefer things about a healthier nature, right? So they're up the eye level for, well, things that our adults are probably more concerned with, right? So there you go. All right. So every business needs to have a marketing plan, not just a business plan, but a marketing plan. How are you going to market something? Now, that marketing plan can be for a product, for a service, for the whole business itself. It really depends. And some businesses have multiple marketing plans in action, right? So a marketing plan is a comprehensive document that outlines the company's marketing efforts for a specific time. It could be a couple months, a year, and a little bit longer, right? It describes the business activities involved in accomplishing specific marketing objectives for a set period of time, okay? What do we hope to achieve during this time frame? What do we want to do, right? Do we want to start penetrating the market with a new product? Do we want to start outselling the leading brands? Do we want to compare ourselves and compete with other companies, or are we happy where we are at? Are we on the low end of the cereal, right? Just where they come in bags and not boxes, or are we the higher end of the cereals, okay? Are we trying to taste like Fruity Pebbles, or are we Fruity Pebbles? Get the idea? It also includes a description of the current marketing, right? The current marketing, what's going on in the market, right? And a discussion of the target market, in other words, who is buying the product, and a description of, well, maybe somebody who's kind of in the mix to buy the product, right? And it helps a business achieve their marketing goals, all right? So let's look at capturing value. There are some companies that do a really good job at capturing value from the customer, or from the customers. And I got two brands here that most people are familiar with, all right? Now, you have Apple. Okay, everybody knows the Apple products, right? And we've talked about that in our PC hardware section. Some people believe that Apple products are superior to Windows and other components and products. They are so much better, and that's fine. Okay, no big deal if you feel that way. That's great. Remember, we said it's all a matter of personal preference, right? And then over here we have General Motors. Now, General Motors owns a bunch of different brands. You may not recognize GM or General Motors, but I'm sure you recognize Chevrolet, GMC, Cadillac. Okay. Now, both of those companies do a great job of capturing value, right? Lifetime value represents the stream of purchases a customer would make over a lifetime, all right? Thinking about Apple. If you know somebody with an Apple phone, is it their first Apple phone? Or have they had Apple phones in the past? Or maybe if you're a teenager in my 8th grade class, you're thinking, hey, I have an Apple phone because that's what my parents have, and that's what they like, and that's what I really prefer using, okay? On the other hand, you might think of people who like and prefer Chevrolet products or General Motors products and like, I will only buy Chevrolet. I'm never going to buy a Ford, never going to buy a Dodge, never going to buy a Toyota. I will always be a Chevrolet buyer. And that's fine, all right? Chevrolet has sold themselves on their value to these customers, right? And the great thing about getting a lifetime value means that they are getting a greater share of customer purchases over other categories, okay? So in other words, when making a decision, okay, to buy a new phone, okay, the people who like Apple products are going to probably stick with Apple products. The people who like Chevrolet products are probably going to stick with Chevrolet products. But of course, there are those who are just like, I don't care, whatever, it's fine, right? So you can take this and apply this to other things, maybe like laundry detergent. Are you still using the same laundry detergent you were using a year ago, or are you always changing it out? Okay, I would say if you're still using the same one you were a year ago or year before that, or the parents are using the same laundry detergent, they're creating that lifetime or long-term value by consistently buying that product. You have a relationship with it, a business relationship, you like doing business with them, so on and so forth. All right, so one last slide here, I believe. Let's see here. Understanding the marketplace as well as the customer needs and wants. You got to do it. You got to do the research if you're going to be in marketing. If you're going to be in business, you got to know what the people want, okay? And you've got to manage the information and the customer data. In other words, you got to look at it, you got to see it, you got to apply it properly, okay? Design a customer-driven marketing strategy. That's really important. If somebody believes that you are in business just to make money, chances are they're not going to do business with you, right? But if they see the value, right? If you are customer driven in your objectives, right? People will pick up on that, right? People like customers. They like being treated well, right? When I deal business, I try to make people feel at home and welcome. And when I had an artist, right, I try to make them feel welcome every time they came around and did what they needed or did what was needed to make them happy and satisfied during the course of the contract, right? Because why? They were also my customers and my clients, right? They got to decide on a value proposal, maybe differentiate between where they are in the product category or where do they position themselves, right? Example, you got the brand name General Mills, right? And those cereals made by the General Mills, right? You got Kellogg's, those are your brand names. But maybe if you are making cereals, are you going to be competing with them or are you going to be like Malt-O-Meal, right? Where you're not really in the boxes anymore and you don't have that brand like Kellogg's or General Motors and you're kind of like in the left-hand area in the inexpensive section, right? Well, that's fine. They are happy being there because they know they are not appealing towards those higher priced cereals, right? Get the idea there, okay? Then, once you do all this, once you understand the marketplace, once you design a marketing strategy, you've got to construct a program that delivers superior value, right? That includes product design, service design, building a brand, right? A recognizable brand. Oops, not the Falcons, the Under Armour, right? Recognizable brand, or McDonald's, or the Nike swoosh, right? You got to develop pricing and create value, distribute and manage supply and demand. We'll talk about supply and demand in another chapter. And of course, promote and communicate a value. Finally, all right? Building relationships and creating demand or satisfaction and delight is really important in the process, all right? You've got to build the relationships, all right? Think about, ladies, think about your hairdresser. Do you always see the same hairdresser? Do you have a relationship with that person? Or are you always seeing somebody new, okay? Fellas, are you always going to the same spot to buy your games? Are you always buying the same style of games? Or maybe you have a preference of video games that you play, right? Or clothing or sports goods that you buy, right? Those are all, building relationships, right? So business has got to think about capturing value from customers to create profits. Profits are a good thing. That's how businesses grow and expand and make the customers happy, right? So create satisfied, loyal customers, capture a lifetime of value, and increase the share of the market itself, right? So yeah, some big college level concepts there, but hopefully we have a good understanding of the information presented in there. All right, so that brings me to activity number 2, and I think we hit up on these, right? How would you define a marketing plan? We got that. Let's see here. We talked about this right here, right, which will help you with this one right here. And then This one here, I think you should come up and should be able to come up with yourself. The why do you think designing a customer-driven marketing plan is important? Because I hit on that really hard, all right? So that brings me to the end of this discussion. And look, I am under the 20-minute mark again. We're on a roll. We'll see you next in lesson number 3.